Wasserstrom, if you can hear us. I'm hoping you're not muted. Then I think that June, we can go ahead and call roll for this meeting.
Mr. Abarca? Ms. Cortez?
Here.
Mr. Hogan?
Here.
Dr. Jones? Ms. Manser?
Here.
Mr. Wasserstrom?
Here.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Here.
Wonderful. So this is our COVID-19 update call. And so that is the sole item on the agenda. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Dr. Bedell.
All right. Thank you, board members and staff members who are on here. We want to try to keep the board updated on any recent developments as it pertains to this pandemic, and also being able to provide our services to the students that we serve. And so we will continue to flow the same way that we have. I'll give an overview of some of my latest conversations. We'll do a food services update, IT update, academic update, communication update, and then you know, as we get through each of those updates, take any questions or any observations that anybody on this thread is, in particular board members, any thing that you're hearing or any things that we need to just be mindful of as we try to manage our way through this. So I did want to start off last week after having the conversation with you all at the board meeting. We ended up attending the Commissioners Advisory Council, and a couple of things that came up in that meeting was the states trying to figure out, which we don't know right now, what does reentry look like when we open schools up again? What are we doing around health monitoring? How do we monitor whether people have symptoms that may be of concern? What's going to be the parent communication from a statewide standpoint? So all of those things at this point are things that they're discussing at the state level and working to want to try to have some uniformity with all of the school districts as we think about reentry and coming back into the system. They also recognize that there is a concern around being able to make sure that school districts are ordering the things that they need to order in advance, just because of the distribution concern of things being able to move from one location to another. And you all know that we've experienced that at this point with some of our hotspots getting stuck in customs, and we'll give you an update because we finally received our first batch of hotspots that have come in. But we still have a number of other items that you all had approved several weeks ago that we're still waiting to get in. And so getting ahead and ordering the things that we need, it was a suggestion as we think about the opening of returning back to school. As far as summer school is concerned, we are Marla will provide an update, or her team will provide an update on summer school, but we're looking right now, potentially, I believe, June 1st through June 26th as a tentative date to do virtual summer schooling. And the conversations I've been having with a number of other districts, some of them are taking that route, and some of them are still trying to hold out to see what July looks like and if there's opportunities to do face-to-face. But right now, most people are planning more so around the virtual aspect of summer schooling rather than face-to-face, because even if things open up in July, the concern is going to be, is that, are we ready to start having that many people come together? So we just have to see what those numbers look like, but that's the talk right now. As far as the order from the governor to close schools for the remainder of the year, it's our intention that we will maintain and stay in school through May 20th. We had talked to you all previously about our teachers making up 2 of those snow days through May 22nd. At this point, we have not discussed anything about waiving that. We have waived a number of days already, and I know that professional development, especially given what's going on right now, is going to be needed as we think about if this becomes a much more longer term situation. So most school districts are going to work to their last day of school, and then in their last day of school, and most of these districts will include the snow day makeup days that they have. And remember, our situation is different because of the amount of hours that we were already in school. But we think that at this point, we talked about May 20th, which is the last day of school, providing the academic services, and then food services is something that we'll probably continue because the state has a waiver really through June 30th. So I believe most school districts will continue to provide the summer feeding just as we've done in the past. So we don't see any change happening in that. But I did want you to know May 20th is the expectation of the commissioner that we go through the end of our calendar dates, or if people decide that they're going to end the year early, they may be penalized by the state. So some districts were talking about ending school on May 15th rather than when their last day was May 22nd or something like that. And she definitely cautioned people against that. So I just wanted to update you on that piece. We are still waiting. I think we received the $206 million since we've last met, and we know the district will get 90% of that Title I allocation. So we're waiting on that money to be distributed to us. And then working with our contractors, because we know that we had some people that were already on contract with the district, some vendors. What's the determination on what's the appropriate amount that those individuals will receive based on whether services are still being provided or not. And we know that that's something that we have been talking about, and I think we're moving on that conversation. As far as financial flexibility, they did talk about the Title I carryover money, which will be waived for Title I's this year. So all the full-blown 15% will be able to roll over, and our schools will be able to continue to have those funds. Linda can probably provide some updates on that as needed when we get to her component. And then we talked about professional development. The state is basically saying the PD definition has been waived. And so with that being said, these monies that we're getting can be utilized. A lot of title money is really scrutinized on how you can spend it. And so they've relaxed the standards on that. So some of these one-time funds can be utilized to give some professional development. And that's something that's also being encouraged. How do we make sure that we get our teachers up to par if this virtual learning thing becomes, a much longer situation due to this pandemic? And then the last piece I have on my update was they were talking about the pandemic, and they were talking about we are a CEP school district. So they're saying that CEP families will be eligible for these pandemic EBT pandemic cards, even if they aren't income, they don't qualify income. Because most of our families, even if you live in an area where your salaries are above middle class or above, our school district will feeding your kids 2 times a week. And so that now has created an additional burden on a lot of our families. And from my understanding, you're a CEP school district, regardless of your income level. If you have kids in this school district, you'll be eligible to apply for that. And I don't know where Desi is. The last I was told, Desi was working on a communication plan on that. Maybe they have updated us, Linda, but I'm not certain at this point if we've gotten anything from them in terms of a new update. So, Linda, are you?
I was muted. I'm sorry. We have not.
We have not. And so that's the piece at this point. And then, as I've stated earlier, well, not earlier, but the last thing that she talked about was making sure that that we're documenting what we're doing. We need to be documenting the efforts around instruction, the professional development, the food services, the folks that are working in the help desk, what mental health supports are the district providing, and not documenting what we're doing. Funding will be impacted if required to produce, because there may, we don't think will be asked to produce this, but we just need to be doing it because it's best practices. So that's the overall review that I got. And I know you all have seen some of this other research around the amount of time that students should be in front of a computer. They were saying high school students, 3 to 4 hours should be the most. And that's a lot there in itself. But elementary, they were saying 1 to 2 hours, no more than 1 to 2 hours. These kids should be sitting on a screen like this. And I think even as us as adults, you know, it's taking a toll on our eyes being on this from 7 in the morning until 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock at night. So they're telling us to, you know, just make sure that there's a balance in there, that we're not requiring folks to be in front of the computer screens like this constantly as we're developing what our virtual schooling will look like. So that is basically where we are as far as my updates from DESE and the commissioner's call, and didn't want to see if you have any questions before we give you the specific updates to the school district. Are you on mute?
Yep, now I'm on mute, sorry.
Okay.
So Dr. Bedell, I'm going to go ahead and just let board members jump in because I can't really call on them. So questions for Dr. Bedell on this component?
You mentioned the summer school program this year. Is there going to be any virtual classroom programs offered to the students during the summer period?
Yes, sir, it will. And I don't know, Dr. Sherp, if you want to weigh in on this, but it will be through our launch platform that we've been utilizing for virtual schools.
When I called in and wrote in for information at the beginning of the school year, the administration told me that there was something like 114 students in the Kansas City public school system that had registered for online courses. Do we have a projection of how many students we expect will take online courses this summer?
We do not. We are opening up enrollment within the next couple of weeks. Right now, Dr. Harrison is working on the summer school application for DESE. We just made a decision as of the last couple of days. Everything is really evolving quickly. I mean, I think, you know, as we go on, we hear more information, we do the best we can to pivot, adjust, and do. But I don't think it's reasonable to believe that the kids will be able to actually go to a physical building in June and maybe not even July. So we went ahead and made the decision to have our summer school the same dates, June 1st through June 26th. And it would be all virtual. And we are, I mean, you know, we're working with schools to tweak plans and do what we need to do to get teachers the professional development, because a lot of them are now saying that they're interested because they know it's virtual. I think many of our teachers were a little bit apprehensive when they thought that we only had 35 applicants. At first, when they thought they were actually going to have to come to a building, but when they found out that it's virtual and it's only going to be 4 hours a day that they would actually have to work with our students virtually, it's more of a facilitation model. And Dr. Harrison is going to present that to you next week at our board meeting. But it's more of a facilitation model where we have modules for kids to go through. And the teacher is not necessarily doing a lot of teaching, but they're doing a lot of facilitating. She's got some really cool classes. Coding class, some kind of fashion design online, they found some really cool ways to really engage our kids. I don't think kids want more of the same. They don't want to sit in front of the computer all day just doing just regular assignments. They want something that's a little bit more engaging. So Dr. Harrison will share that with you. As far as our program, who we have enrolled in virtual learning right now, those numbers have increased, and I can ask Dr. Harrison to provide you with an update on that. We are getting more and more kids actually enrolled on the virtual learning platform right now, and we anticipate that number is only going to go up. And so, you know, part of our plan was to get our teachers ready and geared for this, because realistically in the next, you know, maybe year or two, some of our teachers will be virtual teachers, and some of our teachers will actually be teachers inside the school, because, you know, I mean, we're just trying to make provision for that. And
But that is a provision that we talked about this yesterday when I was on the phone with several of the superintendents from this area. The big concern at this point is the number of students that may, or families that may decide, I like this virtual learning aspect of it. And so districts are talking about that right now, that there's a good chance that there may be a number of kids when we do open back up that may not come back to the physical building because they want to take advantage of the virtual schooling. So that was a conversation that we were all talking about. And it does go back to what we were saying earlier. We've been talking about a regional approach to what virtual schooling could be for the kids here regionally. And most of our districts right now are using Launch. There's a number of us, and that's the virtual school program out of Springfield that's also approved by DESE as an option for school districts to utilize.
Other questions that, Dr. Bedell, I have a quick question on the summer school, or for Dr. Shepard. For June 1st to 26th, you have already hired, you have staff hired and ready to go for that one? No,
we had staff because remember, we had already started planning summer school before the pandemic, and teachers had started applying, and we had 35 applicants, and that just came to a standstill once this happened, because I'm sure many of them were just apprehensive about even having to leave their homes in June. So now what we've done, I think all of them, we've erased all of those, and because summer school is going to look so different and they need a skill set that really requires them to be comfortable with the computer. And we're trying to get all of our teachers trained on the different digital models and things so that all of them could be prepared to teach summer school or to facilitate summer school, because now they're going to have to reapply, and I think many of them will. We have some teachers that are excelling at this model. We have some that we're pushing to excel. We have them at varying levels right now, but we are believing that we will get a lot of response from the virtual platform. And we are thinking, because nobody else at this time has really talked about summer school, we're thinking that we'll be able to get a lot of students to perhaps commit to our summer school. We've been trying to predict numbers, and so hopefully we're hoping that as we roll out these devices, and that all has, the device rollout has something to do with this, because we're getting into hotspot, and I know Joe will talk with you about that in a little bit. But if they get a device, what we're telling them is, we're expecting you to participate in summer school, because if you don't, then we'll be taking the device up in the week of May, somewhere around May 20th, 21st, or 22nd. We're not going to allow them to keep it all summer if they're not going to participate in some type of schooling, and namely our school. So all of those things are connected.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
Can I throw in one? So Dr. Bedell, in your comment about July, are we giving any consideration to kind of any academic continuity activity between the end of summer school, that essentially 2 months between the end of summer school and the beginning of the fall semester? Kind of how, or do you anticipate, or are you thinking about any kind of steps that the district might be able to take to kind of help keep kids engaged, at least at some level, before assuming that we're actually able to, reconvene physically? And I'm not necessarily saying that would be physical or virtual. I guess, is there conversation about what that might look like?
So go ahead, Marla.
Yeah, at this time, no. In July, what we had planned on doing was allowing all of the adults and everyone to regroup and start thinking about the school year and what adjustments that we need to make for the school year. I think that for us to keep pushing past June 30th, we've pretty been living on a lifeline right now, just trying to adjust and trying to shift as things happen. And it's been a lot for all of the adults, and we're just trying to keep our kids engaged. And our plan was to allow the adults to take a break, because we generally call July our dead month, so that people can take vacations. I don't know how far they can go. Maybe it's a virtual vacation. I don't know. But we generally allow that to be the time for adults to unwind and to be prepared to come back in August for the work that we have to do. And many of them will take a couple of weeks and then they'll be here the rest. And our principals gauge and they do what they need to do in order to prepare for the school year. And this year's is going to look a little bit different. And I think that's going to cause some degree of stress for our adults, because we're just living in this land every day of we don't know. We don't know what tomorrow holds.
Have there been any conversations or talk about community partners that we might be able to transition our kids to, whether they're physical or virtual, so that they get some kind of continued engagement?
Yeah, they don't. Well, some of our summer school partners right now are not applying simply because they don't have the infrastructure to deal with a virtual anything. And so a lot of the kids who've been participating in other programs, and this was the conversation that I had with Dr. Harrison and that team yesterday, a lot of them that have participated in other programs that we've always had partners, will probably come and participate in our June program. We know that we're going to have to make some adjustments in August. That's one of those, I mean, it's a guarantee that we're going to have to make instructional adjustments. We're going to look at how do we catch kids up? What are some things that we can do? But, we don't have any plans at this time to do anything in July that requires adults to be committed to that work so that they can refresh themselves. If we need to, packets, but I think kids are probably going to be tired of packets at that point as well.
Okay, thanks.
Well, it's a great question, and it's something to think about. But I do agree. Our teachers had spring break, and right after spring break ended, we went back and resumed, working and getting them trained up and getting those packets going and requiring that there's contact made. So it's a real tough situation that I am definitely interested in wanting to learn about what some other folks are looking to do with that situation. Ours is unique because it's not like we're out the regular amount of time. We got a 2 additional week gap in there because of that law. That right now we're not certain that they'll relax that at all. And even if they did, then that's a whole nother piece that we would have to regroup on with our calendar and even with our faculty and staff, because I know that the talk has been for a number of superintendents. The concern has been, are we able to, instead of starting the school year on the 24th, can we roll that back and start when we started like we did last year? To reduce the amount of time that these kids are away from us. So that has been some of the conversation, but I'm not certain that there's going to be any movement on that either.
Dr. Bedell, my apologies for coming in a little later, just ending another call. Have there been any expansion or more requests for our wraparound services around utility assistance or things other than food from our families?
In terms of people requesting of the district?
Yeah, I mean, the individuals who may be affected by shutdowns, right, who may have lost employment and are looking for any type of supplement financially outside of food, is anyone coming to the district? I haven't been receiving anything. And, I've been looking at Twitter. I haven't seen much there. I haven't been receiving any emails of people requesting support. The biggest thing that I've been getting from families, and there hadn't been that many, but there's been a couple that have had concerns around the devices and when are they going to get the devices and the internet. And one lady said she had, she's got one computer in the house but 5 kids. So, where's the help coming? And I had, we sent a response letting them know that our hotspots are coming in, and we're now that they're starting to come in, we will start to get things deployed out to families. But the ultimate goal is to have everybody have that type of coverage. And then, even with the piloting, but no, I have not gotten anything around. We need, additional financial support or assistance for electricity and or any of those kind of bills and things of that nature. The reason why I asked that is because I just got an email from MCC that's kind of framed towards students, and obviously they're different populations that they serve. But they've just launched a program through federal stimulus dollars that help families and students with some of those supplemental financial funds. So I'm just trying to think outside the box a little bit to see if there's any other elements that we can use, creative funding mechanisms from dollars from the Fed to help support our families to keep them in the district.
Okay.
Dr. Bedell, do you want to go ahead and proceed with your other updates as we go forward? No, and I know we'll have questions along the way.
Yeah, so I'll go and let's move it over to give you all a food services IT update. And Linda, if there's any budgetary updates, right now we haven't really gotten much of information from a budgetary standpoint, but I'll pass it over to you and your team.
Sure. So I'm going to play Jordan today because he's prepping for snowy, rainy food distribution tomorrow. But I wanted to tell you that yesterday, as we started back, we went to our 3 sites, served over 5,200 meals. That's down from our high day in the previous week of 7,800. We think that's probably because people are adjusting to where the new, as well as we communicated, there was still some confusion we know about where to go. So I imagine we'll see a pickup on Thursday. And, you know, everybody is seeing decline in attendance at food distributions. Jordan and I were on a call that he initiated and led with all of the feeding groups last week. And they're starting to see kind of some slowdown as well. I asked June to send you, so if you look at your emails, you have a little bit of detail. Our biggest struggle continues to be those prepackaged items and getting access to those. It's a problem across the country. It's a problem regardless of what vendor you use. So we may go back to making some sandwiches next week until we can get another shipment of Uncrustables. That's not preferred because of temp requirements and handling and all of that. But, you know, if that's what we have to do, that's what we will do. I think the other thing for food that is important to keep in mind is that we are still awaiting that Missouri application for SNAP, as Dr. Bedell noted. I did just confirm a few minutes ago that the only one across the country approved at this time is, I think, Wisconsin as the first one that got in and got approved. No, I'm sorry, Michigan. So we're still on the list for that SNAP approval. But otherwise, we're underway back in the food service business, and we'll start up our homeless and sped delivery tomorrow. We went to a system where we ask them to opt in instead of us just showing up on every doorstep. Our special education students will still be doing the shelters and the majority of our homeless population. Questions on food before I ask Joe to give you a brief update on IT?
Linda, the opt-in process, was that something that was triggered because we showed up to places where no one was, or what was the reasoning behind that?
So both. We were showing up sometimes and finding food left on the doorstep from previous delivery. And then we want to make sure that we can serve for as long as we can those who really want the food. So we emailed everybody that had an email in the system and gave them a quick way to opt in. And then we are making phone calls to everyone else who did not.
Hey, Linda, thanks for the continued work here. Please tell Jordan thank you as well, especially after tomorrow, which sounds like it's going to be a messy, tough day.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at your note really quickly, in the particular element around, despite our communications, we received tons of calls. So I know we're doing social media, we're doing email probably as well. We're putting stuff on our website. Are we also doing like text messages?
Yes, Kelly's team sent out phone blasts, text messages. We all got both a call and a text and email. Media's been really good about, I've seen it all over all the local news channels all week. So it doesn't take long for the message to get through the community. I really, really hope that Thursday we see a lot of families.
Yeah, and I wonder if there's an opportunity with those calls coming in, asking people, hey, what's the best way for you to get information like this in the future? And let them tell us, like, how do we go get information to them most effectively? There might be an opportunity there. And then I also wonder if the numbers dropping is due to, some of the stimulus payments starting to hit people's bank accounts. And so they have some money to go sort of feed themselves. And now we'll see that pick back up here in the next, 2 or 3 weeks.
That's not uncommon during tax refund season and all those times. So I think you're probably spot on with that.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Joe, you want to give us a quick IT update?
Sure. So as been mentioned already, we got our first 1,000 hotspots in, and my staff is currently going through and activating all of those and getting those assigned to the students who have applied and been approved for hotspots so far. We're also sending out a mailer later this week going to the families. One of the concerns that we had was that the families who had been notified that we had hotspots were mostly the ones that already had internet. So we want to make sure we're sending a mailer out to those families who might not have internet so that they can give us a call or they can do the Google form to sign up. We also have, we'll be getting our first shipment of KN95 masks tomorrow. They are here in Kansas City. FedEx has them, so they should be delivered tomorrow. That's 2,500 masks. Chromebook distro, we're looking at the week of the 27th, so we'll be doing the 27th through the 30th on that. Any students who are not able to come to their school on the distro day for their school, they'll be able to come to BOE, to the Technology Operations Center that we have set up here in the boardroom, and they'll be able to get a hotspot or Chromebook here at the BOE from the day that their school does distro onward till the end of the school year. We'll have that staff so that students can come here. They can also come here for technology support. They have a broken device or have issues, they can come in for that. We're also doing a bus Wi-Fi pilot right now at the Southeast, Northeast, and Blueford branches of the Kansas City Public Library. And it looks like we're getting between 100 to 300 feet of range off of our school buses right now for that Wi-Fi. So we're also looking at working with Connecting for Good, as well as the library and us. This Friday, we're going to be doing an event at the Southeast branch where we'll be giving out 75 hotspots to students who have applied and been approved for hotspots. Additionally, Connecting for Good will be giving those same families 75 desktops. So not each family will get one, but 75 families to get desktops there. We're also working on doing our Chromebook order for 6th through 12th grade, and we should have that together hopefully by the end of this week, early next week, to be able to go to their board for the next board meeting for approval. And we're working on, as Dr. Shepard said earlier, doing collection of devices for students who don't go to summer school the 20th, 21st, and 22nd. So I think that's all my updates.
Did you, the concern I have, and Joe, Linda sent us a copy of some research that you all have been doing where you're starting to find some of these hot spots. And I think as a system, we have to think about there's got to be some skin in the game. And I know this is not a good time to be trying to apply that to our families, but we may be one of the few districts that I've ever been around where there's not some $40 charge or some type of fee around ownership over these things that we're given, because what Joe and their team are finding is we're getting these things and they're selling them or whatever. Joe, you want to share a couple of places where we've identified some of our stuff?
Sure, yeah. So we've been doing some GIS mapping. We got some GIS mapping software to make some interactive maps, and we put all of the GPS grid coordinates in for our hotspots, and we've been finding them in California, Michigan, up in Detroit, New York, Boston, Florida, all over the U.S. We've been finding them in other countries. And part of the great thing about this mapping we're doing is we're able to then start breaking it down by school, and we can see kind of which schools have bigger accountability issues. But we are seeing quite a bit that are not within our district boundary. And we understand some of that might be that families have had to move because of this situation or something like that, but the numbers are just way out of scope for the mobility that we've had. We're about to do the same thing with our Chromebook devices, since we have geo-tracking on those and plot those on the map so we can really start to see that picture of where our devices are going.
So
it's a future discussion item that we have to think about as a system.
Dr. Bedell, this is Patty. I think it would be interesting for us to kind of get a sense of what our colleague districts around the Kansas City metropolitan area are doing. We have limited resources. We've been generous as a district and a board in supporting, wide access to the full extent that we can do it, but that is a concern. And so I think just knowing how other colleague districts are handling this kind of thing would be useful for us as you all frame your policy, your proposals.
I've spoken to a number of them. I'm sorry, Mr. Hogan.
No, sorry. You were talking. Go ahead. Finish your point.
No, I was just saying I've spoken to a number of them, and there is some skin in the game pretty much at the majority of these schools. I'm not certain there's any that's basically saying we're giving these out and there's no accountability from the other side. I haven't heard of that except for what we've been doing as a school district.
Yeah. I mean, before I can react one way or the other on it, I'd want to see the numbers, right? So, I mean, are we talking 1%? Are we talking 30%, right? I'm not asking for that today, Joe. It's just, as we have that conversation in the future, it'd be interesting to know, like, is it a substantial problem or is it, I mean, we account for a particular number of or percentage of loss anyway. And so is it 3-4 times that estimation, or is it, right? So I just need to get a feel for like how do we quantify the problem?
The general percent that you want to account for is probably about 25% of a loss. Anything above that, and you got some serious problems as a system. And I know Joe can tell you the number of laptops that we're losing. And you guys have done this out in your school district where you came from, right?
Right.
It wasn't experienced the kind of losses that we have been experiencing at all, not even close.
No, so we're seeing about $250,000 a year, and right now only primarily grades 9 through 12 are taking them home. We got a couple of our signature middle schools that are taking them home, but $250,000 a year. So we're looking at over the 3 to 4 year life cycle, $1 million. And I can tell you, at the district I came from, lost and stolen devices, the 3 years I was there, we had 14 devices that didn't come back total.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Before we move on, Dr. Bedell, I might just share a couple of other pieces. To Mr. Wasserstrom's question, I know that we have more than 200 kids enrolled now in virtual because we're looking at how that impacts ADA. Has a very positive move. If a child completes a class, you basically get an assumed attendance of 100%. So I know that team upstairs working hard on that. But I did want to share that we applied for the School Smart COVID grant last weekend. They had $2 million to offer among all schools, and they allowed several other organizations, non-schools, to apply also. So we applied for $1.6 million of their $2 million, and they awarded us $611 million. So they are paying for the first 3,000 hotspots that are coming in, $486,000. Then we have another $125,000 that are going to go for direct services and supports to our homeless and ELL populations.
Sorry, Linda, can you run through the numbers again? Because I think I heard 611 million.
You did.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Well, I might have put an extra zero on that, 611,000.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were awarded 611,000 hotspots and then 125,000 for direct services for homeless and ELL. And the homeless service is they want to access some fairly large screen phones so that if I'm really homeless, I can take my device with me and be able to get online. So that was what they deemed their highest need.
Thanks.
Okay, does that conclude your update, Linda?
Yes, that's all we have.
All right, thank you. Let's move over to the academic update. And I know we have a couple of folks here that are over some of our subgroup students that we're serving. So I'll pass it over to Dr. Shepard.
Yes, I have Allison Heil here, who is in charge of our English language learners program. I have Jaquita Lowry here, who is our instructional support person for special ed. I have Darren Slade and Lloyd Jackson from school leadership. And I have, I think that might be it on my team. All right, let me look and see. And Trinity, Dr. Davis is here, and she can provide an update as well. And so I'm going to allow each of them to give you an update on what it is that they do. We'll start with Allison. Allison, are you here?
I'm here.
All right.
So we began with just figuring out how families were doing and getting in touch with them and how we were going to get in touch with them. So we have had teachers, paraprofessionals, and our community liaisons reaching out to families using multiple modes. So email, Google Voice, WhatsApp is a great way to communicate with multilingual families. And then we're also using an app called Talking Points, which is free, and it is just a matter of uploading a roster of students, their phone numbers, and their language to the app, and then you type a message in English, and it sends that message translated in whatever language to your families. So we've had a lot of success using Talking Points and getting in touch and checking in with families that way. We have several liaisons who are using their community contacts to check in with families. So one of our liaisons is also a deacon and is in contact with other deacons in Swahili and Kinyarwanda churches. So they're getting messages to families that way. So we're kind of infiltrating in whatever way we can. So that was kind of our first move, is to check in with everybody, make sure we're getting in contact with as many families as we can. Instructionally, we are this Friday sending out packets to our newest families to the country. So our students that have been in the country less than 18 months are getting a special packet. We know those families are really struggling with having access to devices and then even having the device knowing what to do with it. So the first thing we thought is that we were going to send them special packets that really support language development and language acquisition. So those will go out this Friday. Then other than that, all ESL teachers are using Google Classroom or Seesaw for the younger kids to work with students. So they are co-teachers as part of their co-teachers classroom, Google Classroom. They may have their own classroom where they're just focusing on language development. And so they are providing support that way, providing alternative lessons, providing differentiation, videos, kind of working with their teacher teams and PLCs to plan this. And the sheltered teachers are doing the same at the secondary level. Starting next week, we will be adding differentiated supports to the at-home task calendars that are on the website as that kind of next catch-all safety net for students that haven't had access to a device or a teacher or anything like that. So that's been how we've been spending our time these last several weeks.
Dr. Bedell, is this a good moment to pause for questions, or do you want to continue and then pause?
It whatever works. It doesn't matter to me on the updates. If there's something of interest with a particular presenter, we can do the questioning.
Okay. So if anyone has a question for Ms. Heil. All right. Cool. Hearing none at the moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, I'll bring up Dr. Lowry. Dr. Lowry, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I just want to start by saying that I have worked very closely with all the buildings in our district, elementary and secondary, and all of them for the services that we provide for co-teaching and direct instruction. They all have put in some type of plan with specific times to provide co-teaching services or support for students throughout the day, as well as direct instruction. And that's at least 3 to 4 times during the week. All buildings principals have put in some time in place to provide support for SPED students. And I'm very excited about that and very happy about that process. So far with our network 1, 2, and 3, we're seeing about 20 to 30% of special education students who have been consistently logging on. And although that number is still low, the conversations that I'm hearing from teachers is that they are seeing a higher rate of participation from our SPED students when compared to our Gen Ed students. And I believe that's because they have put that time in place. They've been very targeted in their conversations with families about the best time to get in on a Zoom lesson or on a phone call so they can get the support that their student needs far as their individual services. 80 to 90% of our families have all been contacted at least once, but mainly 2 times so far since we have moved on to our phase 2 of instruction. Those that we have not been able to, that 10%, it's due to just not being able to connect through the phone numbers or the email addresses that we have on file, but they are continually seeking out ways to connect with them in various avenues. Instructionally, our teachers are using Zoom to have some face-to-face times with our students. They are also utilizing at the secondary level a lot of Google Classroom and Google Hangout. And at our elementary level, Seesaw has been really a powerful platform for our elementary students and families to both engage with activities that the teachers are posing. We have heard from our co-teaching pairs that they have really taken advantage of the time to do some co-planning together. They are meeting in PLCs. Our instructional SPED coordinators are going into those PLC meetings and providing support for how to enhance their instruction on the virtual platforms. And that's been pretty consistent. And I've had my instructional coordinators document that in their daily virtual support log. Far as the other feedback that some teachers have provided, they believe that they will see a much increased rate of participation in our SPED students once all the devices have been distributed and they have access to the hotspots. Many of the families are saying, as soon as I get the information, I'll make sure my kid gets on, because they really miss seeing their teachers. They really miss seeing their classmates. Our highlight, though, I want to bring the attention to our K-2 inclusion pilot. The numbers there are 75 to 77% participation of all of our SPED students. We are very happy with that. Those co-teachers are planning together, they are engaged, and the students are continuing their learning. They already had a home device, which made this transition to virtual seamlessly. Like, they were so used to being on their devices. Now it's just been enhanced in a way that now they're seeing their teachers using the device at home. And parents that were maybe not amped to get up to the schools to get their devices for the Gen Ed, that has increased, and they have picked up their devices because they truly see the value in using their devices at home online. We have an instructional SPED instructional hotline that we have put out. So far, we've received 5 contacts from families. 3 were phone calls, and 2 were text messages. And their questions were, can I get some help with my learning packet that they received? So we were able to connect them with the case manager or connect them with the teacher directly, and they could get some modifications and accommodations within 24 hours from giving us a call. We also have added our instructional SPED hotline number to our task calendars that will go in effect next week. So we anticipate that number of parents contacting us will increase as they will have more questions about some of the online work, and we're prepared to filter those calls out to the instructional staff so that parents are being communicated with within a 24-hour period. Our K-2 pilot, one of our highlights at James in our kindergarten class, they have posted 22 activities for their kindergartens to do, and they have received 210 items in response to those activities. 14 out of 21 of their students have all participated, and they are continually connecting with those parents to get them all on board. So we are really hoping for 100% participation once all students have their Wi-Fi and access and things kind of calm down in the family dynamics that are experiencing some things. So I'm very happy with where we are right now in light of our situation, that our SPED students are receiving the type of support that they need right now, and that our families are so eager to try these platforms and let their students get on and get engaged into the learning. If I can, I have a 30-second clip that I would just like to show you, if that's okay with the board. And Dr. Bedell, no?
No, it's just supposed to be a quick update. This is not.
Okay. All right. Well, I just want to share with you that even in Zoom, we had some teachers that were on together, and they both were teaching the students, and the students were engaged. They were counting, they were singing, they were dancing, and I just thought it was great to see the level that the teachers are putting in to our students, even in light of this situation. And so I just am encouraged that once we get the devices out, we're going to continue to see activities.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Thank you, Dr. Lauren. And Ms. Heil wanted me to make one addition point to you guys. They're working on translating district communications and sending robocalls in multiple languages, and that is something that they've been doing since day one. And so from her division, she wanted you guys to know that. Next we have Dr. Slade and Dr. Jackson, and then last we'll hear from Dr. Davis. Quick updates. How are things going and what's going on?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Our primary job has been to support principals as they address providing instruction as we deal with this crisis. So we've been meeting with principals every day, for the most part, having virtual meetings. We had a rollout of our virtual plan today. I'm receiving emails from principals on how well that went. As we move forward with this, we've kind of focusing on making sure that our seniors graduate on time. I'm very impressed with the numbers of seniors we have right now who are on to graduate. The high school principals have been doing a great job all year with the graduation PLCs. Also want to kind of commend Joe and his team. Last week, I was able to go down to central office and pick up technology, mainly computer cords, and deliver them to schools so principals could make sure that their seniors who had some technology issues were able to get online. So we're just mainly focused on supporting principals and making sure that they are able to provide that online instruction for students. And again, I'm really happy right now with the number of students we have on track to graduate. And I'm pretty happy with the way the rollout of the virtual learning plan went today. Like I said, I received 3 very positive emails from principals already today. We're having a meeting later on this evening just to discuss how we can move forward and make any changes to that rollout. But everything well considered, and like the previous, like Jakita just said, I'm happy with the number of students that we've had online. The numbers are increasing every day.
Just to add some thoughts in here, it's been pretty exciting to watch our building leaders lead this effort across their campuses as we roll out PD, as we roll out the devices and those kind of pieces, and looking at the connecting pieces that we're still connecting with families in this virtual way, in a very meaningful way, and to see some of the responses of those families when it comes to our teachers who really are pouring into the kids. And just a reminder that relationships really do matter. And our principals, while we're in the middle of all this, they're still finding opportunities to interview new teachers for the upcoming year, for school year 21. They're still making plans for the next school year. So we are taking this in stride, and every day being flexible as much as we can, but also making preparations for what's next in this journey, such as summer school and the fall. So it's exciting times, very challenging times, but it's been great to pull together as teams and several teams within school leadership, within the buildings, to really make this the best of what this can be as a team. So.
And we do want to say that this work is not without challenge and without things that we need to go back and look at and make adjustments to, and we're definitely open. We tell each other all the time, nothing is final. And as we engage in this work right now, we know that there are things that we don't know, things that we haven't thought about. We're not going to pretend to know everything. And so as we get feedback and as we hear from different things, get more information, then we make adjustments and we move forward. Last person, Dr. Davis. Or did anybody have any questions for Dr. Slade and Dr. Jackson? And it is Dr. Jackson. We want to congratulate him publicly here in front of everyone. He defended his dissertation, and he is now Dr. Jackson. We're so proud of him.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
So,
does anybody have any questions for them?
Dr. Shepard, one quick question, one comment and one question. I mean, this is kind of the classic definition of iterative learning, right? I mean, everybody at every level is having to adapt. And I think we have deep respect for the challenge that presents. I don't know if this may have been addressed in the last board meeting in the portion that I missed, or maybe it can be addressed in the future. You don't have to necessarily answer it today, which is just kind of how are you coaching up, and this is particularly Dr. Slade and Dr. Jackson, how are you coaching up your principals to help them manage the anxiety that they and their teams are experiencing?
Certainly, that's a great question. One of the things, I've started to do throughout this process is to do those wellness checks on principals. So we do one-on-one Zoom meetings so they can ask questions, so I can give them some coaching tools and tips to make sure that they're taking care of themselves, but also that they have any questions that they may have on the table answered as well. And then we sit in on some of these faculty meetings that they're having to kind of give them any feedback we can give them around that particular work. And then every week, at least once a week, we bring all our principals together to kind of talk through and be thought partners together in this work and ask those questions and remind us, as Dr. Shepard already put on the table, we don't have all the answers, but we're going to create this solution together.
We're just trying to support principals with whatever need they had. When we first started food distribution, we had principals who took part in that. A lot of them were nervous about it. So we tried to make sure that we were on site for the entire food distribution, just to also take part and play a role in that. We had device distribution last week. We were on site for that. If principals have any need, like last week, a principal said they had 6 seniors who could not access instruction because they did not have power cords. So again, we went out, picked up some cords, delivered them to the school. So we're just trying to make sure we support them in every way, because a lot of them are new, a lot of them are stressed, and as both seasoned principals, so we know how it is when you're dealing with adversity. So we just want to make sure that we have that ongoing support. And for the most part, to be honest with you, we're talking to principals from 8 in the morning to like 10 o'clock at night, because they have questions at all times, and we're just there to answer those questions and be a support for them, because again, this is new for everybody and we don't want anybody to be stressed. And we're also kind of pushing that same message with our teachers and parents that we're going to be supportive in any way, just to ease any kind of fear and anxiety that people are having. So we feel really pretty good right now. And as we talk to principals, they feel that they're in a good place. So again, we're just trying to provide ongoing support every day, just whatever principals need for the most part.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was disconnected. I didn't.
Right. I'm here. It's time for me now, I think, if there's no more questions.
Okay. Are there other questions, or I'm listening for
Dr. Davis?
Dr. Davis,
are you on here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, so from us on the instructional side and the professional development side, since a lot of the PD that we do throughout the year is voluntary, if we don't have that PD time built in, this gives us an opportunity for these next few weeks before the kids get their digital devices and their hotspots to really get all of our teachers on the same page. I met with the teacher advisory group the other day, and they were really happy with the tools that they were able to see. So, for example, we did a PD on Flipgrid, and one teacher said, I should have been using this a long time ago, but you know what? You offered the PD, we just didn't come. So right now, this is an opportunity that we're taking to provide the teachers with an hour of digital tool PD, and then an hour of the content PD, because one of the things that we're ahead of the game on is that most of our resources for the curriculum are digital. So now what teachers are learning is how to push out assignments, how to let it check some of their own work, and they're seeing that this will be easier for them, even moving back to brick and mortar. So we're just making sure that all teachers are on the same page. All K through two teachers are using a certain platform, that they're able to integrate some of these technology tools into the instruction. So then after they get that PD for the next 2 weeks in K through 8, and they're getting it anyway from the digital learning team, and we have assigned digital mentors to every building, so they have someone to go to. And right now what the teachers are saying, I'm just getting more comfortable with it. So by time our K through 8 students have those devices in the next 2 weeks, the teachers are going to feel very comfortable with moving on with instruction. Our curriculum coordinators have had to start recording their PD sessions, because right now Zoom only takes 100 teachers and we're getting more. So we have 2 sessions a day for the most part in the last few weeks that we've been out, and we've been full. So we've had to actually tell teachers, you have to come back to the afternoon session. So our curriculum coordinators have office hours, and they are basically getting calls, but they're working with teachers, again, like Slade said, probably from 8 in the morning until 10 at night, because they're just taking calls and emails as they come in. So they're working with teachers, they're Zooming with all of their grade level teachers. So right now I feel like this is really a good time for us, in such a bad time, to make sure that we are able to provide the professional development to have every teacher on the same page and ready to move forward.
Thank you so much, Dr. Davis. Are there any questions from my board colleagues? Dr. Bedell, I know that we plan these meetings for an hour, but I want to make sure that you've completed your update for us.
Yeah, I just have one, just the last piece of it is the communication update, and just keeping you apprised of what we're doing from a communication standpoint. So Kelly.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are just going to give you kind of a 4-step piece of where we are in communications. Our next layer of communications will be for us to talk about the extended closure through May 20th, given your action this afternoon as a board, if that's coming up here in the next. We'll also talk about technology deployment, as well as our distance learning updates. So again, just making sure that we're keeping our staff and families and community in the loop as we're discussing all of these things on the call this afternoon. The next piece of information, Dr. Woodley's Student Services team, we're supporting that team to reach out to all of the students who we may not have heard from yet. We have a list of students who are going to go personally deliver, whether it's door hanger signs or postcards or flyers to those families, giving them phone numbers, their clinician's name, their school contact information. So that, again, just one more layer of making sure that we're reaching out to those families who we might not have heard from yet. The third piece is radio and some possible content on Telemundo. And so we're looking at how we can support our families in that other arena of radio and TV as we do academics, and then also social emotional supports, thinking about a talk show format for that socio-emotional well-being health for our families via radio. And then another thing that we're looking at too is, we're coming through this crisis and looking at just the crisis communications about logistics and mechanics. But that next transition is getting student perspective and having our students talk to us and message to us how they're feeling through video, through some graduation speeches, through podcasts, just making sure that we're hearing student voice.
Thank you, Kelly. Dr. Bedell, any additional?
No, ma'am.
Today? Okay.
No,
so just in regard to the, I think it was a question, Kelly, that you were asking. The board is not obligated to take any action regarding the closure because it was a statewide closure issued by the governor that pertained to all school districts in the state of Missouri. And so I believe that through DESE and through the governor's office, that issue automatically pertains to the Kansas City Public Schools. So we are not having to take any kind of action related to an adoption of the closure through the end of the school year. That's been the directive that has come from the state of Missouri and from DESE. So we don't have any board actions for this update today. We do have a board meeting next Wednesday on April 22nd, and as we had agreed a couple of weeks ago, the COVID-19 update will continue to be a part of our Wednesdays going forward. We had the 3 o'clock meeting today, but next week COVID-19 update will be embedded within the board meeting that begins at 4:30 p.m. with executive session next week. So any other final notes or comments, Dr. Bedell?
No, Madam Chair. Getting ready for my next event.
Yes, and tell us very quickly so everyone gets a reminder what your next event is.
Yeah, I'll be facilitating a discussion tonight on the census and talking to our community about the importance of filling out that paperwork. What does it mean to our communities, and in particular, what does it mean to our school district when we're not able to have an accurate account? And we know that it's generally our people of color, poor people of color, Black and brown families that aren't in the last census. We just weren't as accurate as we needed to be, and there's some concern that it may be even worse this time. And so not having that accurate account is critical. So we'll talk about that tonight, and then tomorrow at 12 noon, I'm on a discussion around what does equity mean as we try to navigate our way through this pandemic, and that's through Discovery Education, and it looks like 44 states at our last count yesterday. Representatives from 44 states have signed up, and so it's all good opportunities to highlight the work that we've been building on in this school district, in particular as we think about equity, and even the work that we're trying to do to promote and get people comfortable to fill out those census documents. So just trying to get ready for that next.
Thank you.
Actually,
go ahead,
Patty.
Yes.
With the mention of the census, since Patty and I have both been spending some time over the last year promoting the same issues, if you'd like them, I have actually found some printed materials that were supposed to be distributed through public libraries, and I'm working with Mid-America Regional Council to find home for that printed material so that it could get out to the community to help reinforce people's awareness of the census. So if KCPS is interested, we could have that delivered so that it can be included in meals as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a fabulous idea. And we do tend to put a lot of communication items in those bags, and that's a great opportunity to get that to some of our families, because I was at Northeast Middle yesterday, and I'm certain there's a number of families that came that probably have some serious concerns about filling out those documents for the census.
Okay, I'll reach out separately.
All right, great. That's awesome.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this COVID-19 update today. And we will be convening again as a board next week on Wednesday, April 22nd at 4:30 p.m. So with that, we will conclude this meeting.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.